Hi, this is Bob Wood from Photography and Rowlett, Texas Photography Club. I want to talk to you in this episode about luminosity masks. Now, let's talk about luminosity masks for a minute to kind of help explain what they are. By definition, luminosity itself means shadows and highlights, brightness and darkness. So masking would indicate that we're going to mask using shadows and highlights and lightness and darkness. So with that, there's a lot in luminosity mask, and we're going to start today just kind of introducing you to it and helping with masking so that we can change or help with the sky. So we want to illuminate the sky a little bit in this image. It's a little bit blown out, not quite actually, you've got some blue up here, but I want to make it a little bit more intense, kind of fit with the bottom of the image. So we're going to do a luminosity mask that helps us to mask out all these trees here so that whenever we do a curves adjustment, it's going to affect only the sky. So to do that, if you go over here to your layers palette, there's a tab behind it which is channels. Now I may have asked you to remove this channels panel, and if I did, you can open it back up just by going to Windows and going down to channels, which is in alphabetical order right here. And if you click on it, it should open up over here if you don't see it. So if I click on it, it's going to take me to the channels palette over here. Same thing as if I had just clicked on the tab. So what we want to look at, if you look at the channels over here, you've got, let me turn them off. We'll look at them one at a time. You can't turn them all off because you have to have something to see. You have the red panel, which is a kind of it's all of the red colors in the spectrum that go from 0 to 255. So it's showing everything in here that has a shade of red in it that is from 0 to 255 with the different tones. If you click on the green panel, it gives you the greens in here with the same thing. And if you click on the blue channel, it gives you all the blues that are in here. And you notice there's not much in the sky. So what we can do is we can use these channels, or we can alter and add new channels that will help us to make these even darker against a bright sky. So that's what we're going to do, and I'm going to show you that if you click on the RGB, do a command or control click, see all these marching ants you get here throughout the image. This is showing you a selection based on the RGB channel itself. What we're going to do is go to the blue channel, leave these marching ants available. We're going to go to the blue channel and we're going to press Command Option Shift or Command Alt Shift, Control Alt Shift on a PC, and click here. And what that's doing is it's refining that selection to be a little bit darker. So if I click on the mask icon down here, it's going to create a new channel. If I click on that channel, notice it's a little bit darker in here. So if I turn off those marching ants, you can see we have a better mask in here than what we did with just the blue channel. See how much lighter it is in here? And if we click here, turn that off, now we have a darker one. Well, if this one isn't quite dark enough, we can do exactly the same thing, except we're starting from, let's change the name here. We're going to call this Lights 1. And what we're going to do then is we're going to do a Command Option Shift or Control Alt Shift and click again. Wait a minute, I didn't have those marching ants selected, so let me just get out of here and do a Command Shift. Now we have the marching ants for Lights 1. If we do a Command Option Shift and click that icon again, you get an even darker selection. So we're going to do it again with the icon down here to add a new channel. And if we turn this off, turn this one on, turn this one off, now we've got an even darker one. Now let's deselect those marching ants so we can really see it. So you have a pretty nice selection here. You got, if you zoom in here and look at these trees, you can see you have a really nice selection in here in the darker areas. Now the way this works is like with any other mask. In the gray areas, you're going to get a little bit of concealment depending on how dark the gray is. down here, you can barely see down here some very dark grays. That means that some of whatever we do is going to bleed through, but not very much. Up here, if you have some grays, same thing. Here you have some really bright stuff, which means that whatever we do with the curves adjustment will bleed through. So what we're going to do, we're actually going to take this channel, we're going to call it lights 2, and we're going to actually change the mask a little bit, because we can actually, this is a mask, we can mask out the rest of this stuff. So you can paint in black, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to come in here with a brush, we're going to paint at 100% opacity, and we're going to paint, let's see, 100% opacity, we're going to paint with black. So we're going to come in here and we're just going to paint over this stuff, because we don't want the curves adjustment to affect any of this. And we're going to paint over this up in here, and there we go. So now we have a really nice mask that is not going to affect anything in this bottom image. I'm just going to make this really big and make sure I didn't miss anything down here. Okay, so you have a little bit of gray up here, but I'm not going to worry too much about that because it's very dark gray. So whatever we do with the sky will just barely affect that. So now what we can do is we can do a command and click and get those marching ants back. And what I'm going to do is I want to turn RGB back on, turn this off, so we can go back to our normal image, go back over to layers, and now if I click on my curves adjustment, notice that I get this nice little mask here. So now when I come in here with my curves adjustment, now see, look at the graph here on the curves. It's mostly over on the right hand side. That's because it's selecting most of this up here that's very bright. So what we want to do is I want to make this blue a little bit deeper. So I'm going to come over here just above the left side, and I'm going to grab this curve and I'm going to pull it down, and look at that blue get a lot deeper. And you still have some structure in here that we're not getting, so you could play around with this a little bit and maybe pull this down some more, pull this down maybe a little bit more, and try to get some more structure in here with these clouds. But look at the difference if I turn this off and on. Look at what you've gained there. Now there's another thing you can do here that I'm going to show you. You don't only have to use adjustments, you can use anything that you can use a mask for. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here and I'm going to copy the base layer and I'm going to rasterize it. And then I'm going to actually create another smart object. And the reason I rasterized it is because it's like an absolute copy of the original, and I don't want to change, whatever I change there is going to change the original. The other thing is that I wanted this to be on a separate layer because I'm going to apply this mask to it, and if I apply mask to it I need to have something down below to show through. So what we're going to do is I'm going to actually apply a filter to this. Now if we look in filters and I look, there's really not anything in here in the standard filters for Photoshop that I want to use. So I'm going to come down here to Skyline Software and I'm going to go to Luminar 4, and we're going to apply a Luminar 4 adjustment. And it'll take just a minute here to open up, but you can use any kind of a filter. You can use the lookup tables that we talked about. You can use whatever you want to use to try to enhance this sky a little more. So we're going to come in here to AI Structure, or excuse me, AI Enhance, and we're going to use the Sky Enhancer. We're going to push it over just a little bit and see what we get. Maybe AI Accent too. AI Enhancer a little bit more. And it's darkening the blues a little bit. Not doing much for the structure though. Let's try AI Structure and see what we get. So we're getting a little bit more structure there in the sky. I just want to see those clouds a little bit more down here. So let's just try that. So I'm going to apply that. It's going to take a minute here. I don't care what it does down here because we're going to mask all this off. And if you like it, I mean, you could also work on this down here if you wanted to over here in Luminar, but we're not worried about that right now. We're only going to be looking at the sky. So when this gets back over to Photoshop, okay, we're back over here now. We're going to copy this mask down here so that it removes the effect on the bottom part. So look at that difference. Wow. There's lots of ways to copy this mask down here. the way I like to do it is press on the Alt or Option key and just drag it down, and it just replaces it. So, and if you don't press the Alt or Option, it moves it down there. So we don't want to move it away from the curves. Now, so if you look at it, let's look at the original here. And look, it only affected the sky. So pretty cool. Now, if we went too far, all you got to do is pull the mask, or pull the opacity down a little bit. Now you've got a really nice little sky over this area. Okay, so let's look at another one. We've got this image right here, and the same kind of thing. Now, I want to tell you that the way I showed you to add these channels is a little bit laborious and a little bit complicated. So I've included on the Google Drive an action that's going to do it for you. So all you have to do is go, there's a guy named Greg Benz, and there's a lot of photographers that have created these actions, but Greg has created this action, and it's free, and it's, like I say, it's on the Google Drive for you to load, and I'll show you how to load if you don't know how. But basically, if you click here on Create All Luminosity Mask and click the play button, it will add all of those. But I want to emphasize it's very important to then remove them when you're done with them. Let's go over here to the previous one that we had. Sorry, wrong image. To this one, and we're done with these now. So what we need to do actually is just drag them down here. Actually, that's a mask, so I need to get rid of the lights. There we go. And now those things take up a lot of space on the hard drive, so you don't want to leave them there. Okay, so I wanted to emphasize that. So basically what we're going to do here is I'm going to click on here and say hit the play button, and it's going to go through a series of durations, but real quickly it creates the mask down here. Now it creates not only lights, but it creates darks and midtones as well. So if you go through these, right now we're looking at masking everything away from the sky. So what I would do is come down here and look for something that gives me something really close to what I'm looking for. Now these got a lot of mid-tone grays in here, so I wouldn't want to use that. I need something a little bit darker, and this does a pretty good job, and this one is very dark. So it's going to be one of these two. Now if you use this one, we have some darker clouds right here, and I actually like those to be darker. We don't need to, whenever we are going to do our curves adjustment, we're actually going to darken these clouds and try to bring this blue up in here. So we don't want to make this any darker. So I kind of like this being a grayish color in these clouds down here, so I don't want to affect them very much. But now I would have to come in here and do something about this and do something about this, and then so that now this right here is a bleed through. In this pump here, you've got glass, and you can see the clouds through the glass, so you don't want to do anything about that. So I kind of like this one, and what I'm going to do is take this one, and we're going to do the same thing we did a while ago. We're going to paint in black and get rid of all this stuff down here. Now I've got a fairly soft brush, so I need to let me just zap that out. I actually blacked out some of the see-through in the trees here, and I don't really want to do that. And I'm going to change the softness on my brush to be a little harder. Let's make it about 75% hard. So we're going to come in here again, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to leave this right here because that's see-through. It's the same thing as this over here. It's a little bit of see-through, and I'm not too worried about it being adjusted. So we're just going to black out all of this. And this is all optional to, to black out as much as you want, but it makes sense to me to get the look that you want. Now we're coming in here, and I'm just going to lower my size of my brush and carefully come in here and paint this. And if you bleed over a little bit, it's probably not going to be too noticeable, but it'd be best if you can just get what you want, like right there. And then right here, same kind of thing. Just right there like that. That should be good. Whoops. Of course I did that. Let's try again. I was a little anxious to get away from it. So there we go, like that. Okay. And this right here, I'm not too worried. We have a little bit on the Phillips there I'll get rid of. So now we've got a pretty nice little mask here. And what we're going to do with this, I'm going to take it and Command click on it to give me the marching ants. and I'm going to come up here and I'm going to unclick it here. Oops, click the RGB, turn it off, go back over to layers, and now I'm going to create my curves adjustment. And again, it's way over to the right because most of this is really bright. So what we're going to do is, again, look at about right in here somewhere, and I'm just going to pull that down, and it's going to darken that sky, and notice that blue coming in on the left hand side. So maybe even more right in here. So there you go. That gives it a little bit of a, maybe a gloomy sky look, but that may be too much. Then I can just take it back here a little bit with my opacity. So now we have some blue showing through here, and here's the before and here's the after. So you have a little bit of a better look on the image, very quickly able to create this mask so that you can adjust the sky. So that's just a touch. That's just the beginning. This is we will be getting much more into luminosity mask. Luminosity masking basically allows you to look at a particular area in an image and then look at your luminosity mask to see which one allows that particular image to be masked out the best. And you can use that mask and then darken everything else, or you know, make everything else irrelevant, and then use whatever filter or adjustment you want just on that one area. So it's very, very powerful in allowing you to do that, and you saw how quickly I did it here. So that's all I wanted to talk about. Luminosity mask, very powerful, very easy to use, and we will get more into them. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you later.